Hi, I'm here to present you our STEM project, but before doing that, I want to present you the idea.
In this model, what we try to represent is the circulatory system and simplify how it works. Also, to try to represent how the diseases affect the system. In this system, we can find two processes, the biological and the chemical one. The biological is represented by how it transports the oxygenated blood to every cell in the human body, and how also it takes out the waste produced by these cells in order to create energy from the human body. And also we can find the chemical one, that is represented by how it changes the oxygenated blood for the non-oxygenated one, and all the way around. Talking about the oxygenation of the blood, it happens that the red cells are great vehicles for transporting the dissolved oxygen. That's because red blood cells contain a special oxygen-binding protein known as hemoglobin. Each hemoglobin molecule contains something else which is important for transporting oxygen, 4 molecules of hem, which is an iron-containing pigment capable of binding oxygen loosely and reversible. Now, talking about heart diseases, we will talk about the arteriosclerosis, a condition in which fatty acid deposits, called plaques, build up in artery walls and eventually cause the artery to siphon. Over time, plaques often bulge into the center of a vessel and restrict blood flow to heart muscle.
Hi, so I'm here to show you how our STEM project works. Our STEM project is basically the representation of the circulatory system. As you can see, there is the red water that represents the oxygenated blood and the blue water that represents the use of the oxygenated blood. So what happens here is that behind our project we have two pumps. One that pumps the red water and the other that pumps the blue water. So, this is our representation of the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood. So what happens in the oxygenated blood is that, imagine that the hemoglobin with oxygen is represented by the red color, and the hemoglobin without oxygen is represented with the blue color. So what happens is that the hemoglobin travels to the lungs. The lungs provide the hemoglobin or give to the hemoglobin the necessary oxygen to carry out through the system and goes to a cell, which is this. So what happens here is that the hemoglobin is traveling from the lungs to the cell. The cell uses this oxygen and gives away the hemoglobin. Then the hemoglobin returns to the lungs, and the cycle repeats. So, another important thing about the STEM project is that we want to represent or show to the people how the diseases affect this system. So, for example, this is an arteriosclerosis test. We have here 3 simple questions that will help us to know if you are in risk to have arteriosclerosis or not. First, there is an important thing to do. we need to determine one thing. If you know that if in your family someone had died or have this disease, arteriosclerosis, if the answer is yes, you have more risk of having arteriosclerosis. But if the answer is no, you have less risk of have this. Let's suppose that I say yes. So I attach this. And now, we have 3 simple questions. The first one, do you have a healthy diet? If the answer is yes, then we will stay in the same level. If the answer is no, we will go one level. Then it is more difficult to transport the oxygen. Now, second question. Do you practice any sport or do any exercise? If the answer is yes, I'll remain in the same level. But if the answer is no, I'll go one level. Now it is difficult to do this. Okay, now the final one. Do you smoke or drink alcohol? If the answer is yes, I'll do one level more. If the answer is no, I'll remain in the same level. Now it's really difficult to do this work. What happens is that the arteriosclerosis blocks the way from the lungs to the cell. Was the way by which the blood transports the oxygen. So what happens is that in some point there will be a total block and it will stop suddenly. You won't have any oxygen to carry out and you will die. What happens in the arteriosclerosis is that the cholesterol accumulates in the part of in the plaquettes of the blood vessel. So the cholesterol is a compound that is found in the human body. The cholesterol transports the sugars and nutrients in some form from all the body. It has a especially unique chemical formula, which is carbon 27, hydrogen 46, and 1 oxygen. So what happens is that it sticks to one part, and then suddenly more cholesterol sticks to that part, and it continues until the membrane breaks out and it blocks the valve or the blood vessel and it stops. So this is basically our separate.